Hey guys, tonight we dive deep into the shifting sands of ancient Egypt, not to unearth gold or forgotten tombs, but to uncover something far more intimate. What those striking black lines around Egyptian eyes really meant. Picture this. You're standing in the warm twilight, the sun just dipping behind the pyramids, and the wind carries the scent of dust, lotus blossoms, and a hint of something metallic. You're not a pharaoh, not a priest, just a regular citizen with a wooden mirror and a tiny pot of crushed green stone. You dip your applicator and draw a smooth line beneath your eye, and for a moment you look like someone who could command the Nile itself. Except, you're not doing this for beauty. Not really. This eyeliner, the thick, dark kohl traced with ceremonial care, has more to it than meets the eye. Literally, you're warding off evil spirits, protecting yourself from sun glare, even trying to stop eye infections in a world where hygiene means a quick rinse in the Nile and hoping the crocodiles aren't hungry. And yes, some of what you're applying is mildly toxic. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink through the smoky, desert dusk. Your eyelids feel cool, soothed, and slightly heavy. You can almost sense the line of malachite under your lashes absorbing not just the harsh sunlight, but bad luck too. In the marketplace, people pass you with matching lined eyes, men, women, even children. It's not a fashion trend. It's identity. In a world built on myth and ritual, your eyeliner is a declaration. Of faith, a place, of protection. Around you, sandstone temples rise. Etched into their pillars are wide, staring eyes, often exaggerated, rimmed with the same stylized lines you just applied. They belong to Horus, or maybe Ra, or a priest whose tomb hasn't been looted yet. These eyes watch over everything, just as yours now do. The ancient Egyptians believed that by mimicking the gods, you could harness a sliver of their power. A smoky flick of kohl, a line to the divine. The heat doesn't let up, but your face feels cooler, calmer. This part practical, kohl reduces glare and can deter flies. But it's also spiritual. You've stepped into a larger story, one where even makeup carries cosmic weight. You don't just draw on eyeliner, you invoke it. Behind you, a young girl giggles as her mother applies her eyeliner with a carved ivory stick. Her laughter breaks the solemnity, but even she seems to know this is more than play. You realize you were probably lined as a child too, when you couldn't even walk yet. It was protection, maybe tradition, maybe both. The memory is vague, lost in time, but the black smudge remains, passed down, unbroken. You pass a scribe chiseling a scene into limestone. There's a noble woman with elegantly painted eyes offering something to a deity. It's not food, not flowers. It's herself, gaze first. Even in death, appearance mattered. How you met the gods was just as important as how you met your neighbors. And the gods? They preferred a bold wing and symmetry. Historians still argue whether eyeliner originated purely as medicine or magic or both. Maybe it was all interwoven, one fluid line drawn between health, identity, and belief. What's clear is that for over 3,000 years, Egyptians didn't go a day without it. You find yourself walking beside the Nile. The water glints, mirroring the shimmer of green malachite. Boats glide by silently. Someone nearby is crushing galena, the black mineral used for the darker shades of kohl. The powder drifts on the breeze, mingling with incense and spice. You inhale and it's like breathing in ancient chemistry. Your fingers brush the rim of your eyeliner pot. It's made of polished stone, cool to the touch, smoothed by years of use. Maybe it belonged to your mother or her mother. Maybe someone's carved a small spell inside the lid, just a little something to ward off bad dreams. Later, as the sun slips behind temple towers, casting long shadows, your eyes remain lit. The eyeliner refracts light, holding onto the golden hour like a whisper. You catch someone staring, not at you, at your eyes. In Egypt, the eyes say more than words. They reflect strength, poise, protection, and maybe, just maybe, fear. You remember stories told in whispers about the eye of Ra burning those who dared lie. You hope your lines are straight today. You reach a shrine just before nightfall. Offerings flicker in oil lamps. The priest's eyes are more dramatic than yours, lined with thick layers that taper into a perfect wing. He sees you watching and gives a slight nod. A shared understanding passes between you, not just about beauty but about survival, belief, and power. You press your palms together. The kohl on your lashes feels heavy now, like a warm blanket, a mark of belonging, of knowing, of watching and being watched in return. The desert stars begin to blink above, and as you close your eyes, the cool line beneath them reminds you. You are protected, connected, and beautifully human. You wake early, before the sun turns the sand into something sharp. The wind carries that dry hush, the kind that tickles your nostrils and lets you know a sandstorm isn't far off. Still, you have things to do. Your coal pot calls to you from its spot beside your copper mirror. You wet the tip of a slim stick, bone maybe, and swirl it into the dark powder. A quick flick under each eye, and it's like armor sliding into place. Not just any armor. Today, you're heading out to help patch the thatch on your neighbor's rooftop, and the midday sun is merciless. That eyeliner you just applied? It's more than flair. It's your defense system. You feel the sting of dust as the wind kicks up. Without that coal, your eyes would be red and teary already. The powder forms a thin layer that blocks the fine grit from burrowing in. It also helps with the glare, turning the brutal light from the sand and Nile into something you can squint through without looking like a raccoon by midday. Historians still debate whether ancient Egyptians truly understood the antibacterial effects of their eyeliner. Did they know it reduced infection risk? Or was it all instinct and tradition? What we know now is that the minerals in coal, like galena, can slow bacterial growth. But back then, you just knew that without it, your eyes swelled and stung more often. And sometimes they never healed right again. You glance at a young boy nearby, wide-eyed and freshly lined, blinking through his first day helping his father in the fields. He fidgets, trying not to rub his eyes. The liner feels strange to him, slippery, cool. But his mother swore by it. And so here he is, his tiny eyes outlined like a miniature warrior. A few men walk by with hunting gear slung over their shoulders. Their eyeliner is darker, heavier, almost smudged into a mask. It's intimidating, almost theatrical. You nod at one, and he offers a half-smile. Theirs isn't just sun protection. It's camouflage, a way to stare down prey or rival tribes without blinking too much. And then come the flies. You swat absently, already regretting not smearing a thicker layer under your lower lid. The flies don't just buzz here, they target. Straight for your eyeballs like they've signed some foul bug pact. Your neighbor cackles and hands you a bit of black powder on a palm leaf. You missed a spot, she says. She's right. You fix it. And almost instantly, the flies shift course. Just slightly, like they know better. Here's the wild thing. Some historians believe the eyeliner's aroma, earthy, slightly metallic, may have masked natural human smells or repelled insects outright. Others argue it was just superstition. Either way, you're glad for the buffer. You climb onto the roof, balance against the slant, and begin to tie down loose fronds. The sun is full now, pressing hard on your skull. The coal around your eyes glistens with sweat, but it doesn't run. That's the magic of it. When made right, it clings. Not like modern mascara, but like something forged in volcanic breath. Someone below is playing a reed flute. The melody swirls upward, mixing with the scent of date palms and that ever-present heat. You pause to rest, wiping your brow but avoiding your eyes. You've learned that the hard way. Rub your eyes, smear the line, invite a world of sting. As you stretch your back, you catch sight of a stone carving on the neighboring building. A figure stares out, noble, impassive, with eyes that stretch far past human norms. It's almost funny, but you know what those lines mean. The wide, almond-shaped outlines weren't literal. They were power drawn in stone, protection made permanent. Egyptians believed that eyes could hold energy, see beyond. So lining them wasn't just functional or cosmetic. It was symbolic. It meant, I see. I know. I am protected, and maybe I can protect others. A falcon cries overhead, Horus's sacred bird. Its wings flash against the sky, and you feel it, that tiny pull in your gut. You're connected to something bigger, something that makes this daily ritual more than just habit. Still, not everyone buys in. The neighbor's son, the skeptical one with his modern ideas, scoffs when his mother hands him the coal pot. "Why do I need this?" he mutters. She just narrows her eyes and gestures at the gnats circling his face like he's a festival lamp. He lasts exactly 3 minutes before he's begging for it. There's always one. Later, in the shade of a palm, you rest. Your eyes are tired but not stinging. A tiny bead of sweat collects under one lid but doesn't burn. The coal has formed a soft, protective seal. You almost feel smug. You watch a small funeral procession pass. The mourners wear somber expressions, but even now, eyeliner defines their faces. It's not for looks. It's for remembrance, for protection, for preparing the dead to meet gods without squinting. Because even in the afterlife, you'd better be camera ready. Quirky fact: some folks swore that lining your eyes just right could keep your soul from leaking out while you slept. Dream escape prevention, courtesy of crushed rock. You yawn and lean back. The wind picks up again, whipping sand into little spirals. Someone cries out from a rooftop, dust in their eye. You smile, smug and sleepy. Should have worn the coal. Your eyes feel a little heavy now, and you close them for a moment. Not out of exhaustion, but peace. That eyeliner, the same ritual done for thousands of years, worked again. Against glare, against flies, against the creeping feeling that the world's watching and you're not ready. And when you open your eyes again, the world looks softer somehow. More filtered, framed by black wings, both practical and sacred. The scent of incense curls through the narrow corridors of the temple, wrapping around your senses like silk. You walk slowly, deliberately, the soles of your feet whispering against cool stone. Around you, painted deities gaze out from the walls. Osiris with his regal beard, Hathor smiling enigmatically, and Horus, always watching. Their eyes, all of them, lined thick and dark. Of course they are. This place is sacred. You can feel it in your lungs, in the quiet vibration of your bones. You're here to make an offering, to thank the gods for something small. A successful harvest, maybe, or the health of your sister's newborn. Before you enter the inner sanctum, you reach into your satchel for the pot of coal. It would be unthinkable to face a god unlined. The temple priests agree. They're already here, moving like shadows, their eyes dramatic and almost otherworldly. They've layered on the eyeliner heavily, shaping it upward into fierce curves that stretch toward their temples. It transforms their faces into masks, expressions locked in divine neutrality. One of them gestures for you to cleanse your hands. You do, dipping them in a cool basin of water scented faintly with frankincense. Then, before moving forward, you kneel to reapply your coal. This time, you draw the lines slower, steadier. There's ritual in the rhythm. You feel it working, not just on your face, but in your mind, calming, centering. Historians still argue whether eyeliner application during ceremonies was symbolic of becoming godlike, or merely an accepted norm for appearing presentable in holy places. Either way, as you rise and walk deeper into the temple, something in you shifts. You're not just a farmer's daughter or a scribe's apprentice now. You are a seeker, an equal, someone seen by the gods. The walls pulse with heat and shadow. Flickering torches create eyes within eyes, staring from carved falcons and painted lions. The priest begins to chant, his voice low and melodic, echoing off sandstone and ceiling. It sounds ancient and oddly familiar. Maybe it always sounds like this. Maybe it always will. A bowl of offerings sits before you. Figs, bread, polished stones. You lay your own gift beside them. A tiny pot of crushed malachite, wrapped in a linen cloth. It glows faintly green even in the torchlight. It's not much, but it's sacred. Malachite doesn't just beautify. It heals, protects, and links your body to the god's eternal gaze. And besides, you know the priests will probably use it tomorrow when preparing mummies. That's another thing. The dead, they're never left barefaced. ever. Even mummies are given kohl-lined eyes. Imagine going to the afterlife and meeting Osiris with crusty lids and no eyeliner. Embarrassing. You remember watching a burial once. A nobleman wrapped in white, surrounded by mourners in black wigs and detailed makeup. Before sealing the sarcophagus, a priest had leaned in and gently reapplied a thin line of black beneath the nobleman's eyes. A finishing touch, a whisper of power, quirky detail. In some tombs, archaeologists found eyeliner kits placed lovingly beside the body, as if the dead might wake up with smudged makeup and want to freshen up before meeting the gods. One even had a mirror still shiny enough to reflect your own curious face when the tomb was opened centuries later. The chanting swells and you fall into it. The sound loops inside your skull like a lullaby made of earth and ash. Your eyes water slightly, but the kohl holds. That's part of its magic. An outer strength that echoes an inner calm. You glance toward the shrine, where a statue of a deity sits cloaked in incense smoke. Its eyes, wide, dark, symmetrical, seem to gleam. Is it the flicker of flame, or something else? You aren't sure, but you stare anyway. It stares back. For a moment, you wonder if the gods apply eyeliner too, or if they were born with it, their divinity inked into their gaze from the start. The stories don't say. Maybe some secrets belong to them. You lower your head. The ceremony draws to a close. The priest dips his hand in oil and presses it gently to your forehead. You feel a warm pulse, like someone tracing a line between this world and the next. You exit the temple slowly, blinking against the brightness outside. The eyeliner shields your eyes from the sudden glare. Around you, the city hums to life again. Merchants shouting, sandals slapping stone, goats bleating in the distance. But inside you, something remains still, quiet, lined with reverence. You pass a young girl balancing a basket of papyrus on her head. Her eyes are lined too, crookedly, messily, probably done in a rush. But it's there. The instinct, the tradition. She catches your eye and grins. You smile back, then reach into your pouch and hand her a scrap of linen dusted with leftover malachite. She runs off laughing, already rubbing it onto her fingers. A green smudge forms at her temple. She's learning, and so it continues, one line at a time, passed down like memory, like song. You're crouched beside a low table, surrounded by jars and vials, bits of chalky stone, chunks of dark ore, and flakes of dried plant matter. The air smells metallic, earthy, with an undercurrent of sulfur? Maybe. You've been helping your cousin with her little side hustle, making eyeliner, and today she's showing you the real work behind the glamour. This isn't a quick beauty routine slapped together in front of a mirror. This is chemistry. Ancient, smoky, potentially hazardous chemistry. You're grinding galena lead sulfide into fine powder with a stone mortar. It's dense, gleaming slightly, like obsidian crushed into shadow. You lean closer, fascinated. Your cousin swats at your forehead. "Don't breathe too deep," she mutters. "You want shiny eyes, not a coughing fit." She's not wrong. Historians today raise eyebrows at the idea of lead-based makeup being rubbed near the eye. Some claim it's a miracle people didn't go blind, or at least suffer low-level poisoning over time. Others counter that in the quantities used, the body tolerated it fine, or maybe even benefited from the antibacterial properties. You still inhale anyway, just a little, and then sneeze black dust across the table. Lovely. She sighs and hands you a strip of linen to wipe your face. The process continues, grinding, sifting, mixing with oil or water until the texture becomes something smooth and smudgeable. It's not just galena you're working with today. There's malachite too, for a green tint, and something she calls red ochre, which looks more like brick dust than makeup. You ask if anyone actually wears red eyeliner. She shrugs. Some dancers do, or the priestesses of Hathor during certain festivals. Makes them look like they've been kissed by the gods. You test a smear on your wrist. It stains like dried blood. A little dramatic, maybe, but captivating. She pulls out a set of tiny scoops made from shell and wood. Each one's labeled in tiny, faded hieroglyphs. One shows a falcon, another a rising sun. You run your finger over the carving, ancient, but still sharp. These tools aren't just practical. They're sacred. It hits you then, this isn't makeup the way your modern brain thinks about it. The spellcraft, mixing the pigments, selecting the right minerals, preparing the face, it's all a ritual, like grinding prayers into powder. Some scholars today even argue that the act of making kohl was part alchemy, part magic. That the ingredients weren't just chosen for color or comfort, but for their symbolic associations. Protection, clarity, vision, insight. You're not just putting on eyeliner, you're invoking divine favor. And speaking of divine, here comes the neighborhood priestess. She enters the room without knocking, as if the air parts for her. Her eyes are ringed in black, stretching into points so sharp they could slice onions. She's calm, quiet, barely says a word, but when she kneels beside the table and picks up a vial, even your cousin straightens up. The priestess scoops some powdered malachite onto a shallow stone palette and begins mixing it with resin. The smell changes immediately, sweet, resinous, almost floral. She's making a ceremonial blend, something richer and stickier than the everyday formula. Your cousin leans close and whispers. She's prepping for a night vigil. You need strong liner for that. Something that doesn't smudge even if you cry a little. You raise an eyebrow. Crying at a night vigil? She shrugs. Sometimes people see things. Okay then. The priestess finally speaks. Want to try it? You nod before your brain catches up. A mistake, maybe. But now she's tilting your chin up, pressing a small stylus to your lower lid, and drawing a line so straight it feels mathematically impossible. The liner smells faintly of pine and copper. Tingles. When she's done, you blink slowly. Everything looks the same, and yet different. The colors around the room feel sharper, as if someone adjusted the contrast on your vision. The shadows move more deliberately. You can see every wrinkle in your cousin's brow, every grain of powder still scattered on the table. It's not just eyeliner. It's focus channeled. The priestess seems satisfied. She stands, places the stylus back in its box, and leaves without another word. You sit there, blinking, trying not to ruin the line. Your cousin sighs again. She always does that. Shows up, lines one person's eyes, and disappears like a cat. The sun starts to dip outside, casting warm light through the open window. The kohl glows slightly in the fading sun. Less like makeup, more like war paint. You feel ready for something, but you're not sure what. Your cousin packs up the kit carefully, murmuring a little chant as she ties the linen shut. So the magic doesn't leak, she explains. You both laugh, but neither of you unties it to check. Quirky fact of the day: some eyeliner kits were so precious they were passed down through families like wedding dowries. In one excavation, archaeologists found a cosmetic chest with a hidden compartment holding a love note. The punchline? The note wasn't for the wife. It was a secret tryst inked in charcoal and coal. You imagine that star-crossed lovers communicating through eyeliner. As the night deepens, you help your cousin close up shop. She hands you your own tiny pot of kohl. Made fresh, she says. Might sting a little at first, but you'll get used to it. You pocket it, feel the weight in your palm like a tiny meteor. You head home, eyes still lined, vision still sharp. You feel taller somehow, older, like you know something you didn't this morning. Not just how to make eyeliner, but why it matters. You pass a group of young girls playing by the well, drawing lines on each other's faces with sticks dipped in soot. Their giggles follow you. You wave. One day they'll learn how to do it properly. But for now, they're practicing the future, one smudged line at a time. It's the middle of the day, and the sun is cruel. You squint against it, sweat already gathering at the nape of your neck. The Nile glitters in the distance, a ribbon of light slicing through the dry land like a god's careless blade. Your hands are busy weaving baskets, but your mind drifts. Mostly because your eyes sting. Not from the heat, from the glare. You blink again, wishing you'd remembered to line your eyes this morning. The kohl helps not just with looks but with survival. You're not being dramatic. Everyone knows it reduces the blinding brightness bouncing off the sand and river. And here comes proof. Your neighbor, a fisherman, striding past in a linen wrap, his eyes boldly lined in black. He looks vaguely smug, and you hate him for about 2 seconds until the breeze changes direction and the sun slices across your face again like a hot whip. You sigh, toss the basket aside, and dig through your pouch. There's a pot of yesterday's coal, probably a little dry, but usable. You dab some on with the corner of your tunic, using your reflection in a polished shard of copper. Even half applied, it instantly helps. You blink a few times, and the squint eases. Ah, sweet relief. This isn't superstition. Modern scientists have tested samples from ancient eyeliner remnants and confirmed that galena, the main ingredient, helped reduce glare and possibly prevented eye infections by repelling flies and dust. It's like built-in sunglasses and insect repellent in one stylish swipe. Historians still argue whether the protective function of kohl was the primary purpose or just a helpful side effect of something that began as spiritual practice. You personally don't care. All you know is that it works, and without it, you'd be blinking like a baby hippo in a sandstorm. Later, you join a group of workers headed toward a construction site. They're not building a pyramid, those days are past mostly, but a noble's tomb. Still, the work is punishing. Heat, dust, lifting stones that feel like they're carved from stars. And yet, nearly every face is lined with black, green, or sometimes even a reddish hue. You fall into step beside a carpenter with eyeliner so sharp it could cut onions. He grins at your glance. Blocks the glare, he says. And the ladies like it. You smirk. He's not wrong. Quirky detail? Archaeologists once found a set of tiny stone statues of workers, all wearing kohl. Even the guy carrying bricks had dramatic cat eyes. Apparently, even your mini representation needs to look fabulous. The sun keeps climbing. Your shoulders ache. A foreman yells something about lifting with your legs. You pretend you didn't hear him, but through it all, your eyes remain calm, cool, shaded by that miracle mix of stone and magic dust. Eventually, there's a break. You huddle in the shade of a palm, drinking water that tastes like old clay. A fellow worker slumps beside you and pulls out his own makeup pot, tapping it with a dusty thumb. "I've had this since my wife gave birth," he mutters. "Been refilling it ever since. Keeps me lucky." You nod. There's something comforting about that. The idea that even in this heat and noise and struggle, a simple jar of kohl carries protection, memory, and maybe even love. He offers you a dab. You accept. The brush is soft, worn with use. The line he draws under your eye is gentle, imperfect. But that's not the point. It's not about being flawless. It's about being seen, shielded, and remembered. By the time work ends, your face is streaked with dust. Your tunic clings to your back, and your hands feel like leather. But your eyes? Your eyes are sharp, alive, awake. You wash in the Nile, the water shockingly cold. The kohl runs in little rivulets down your cheeks, painting trails like ink on parchment. You look at your reflection. Even smudged, you look strong. Kind of mysterious, too, like someone who knows things. As the sun sets, you walk home slowly, passing others on their way to evening prayer or dinner. You see their eyes first lined, framed, watching. It's the shared language of the day worn and the sun scorched. You think of those early morning fishermen casting nets with clear vision. The priests staring into candlelit altars. The children squinting over tablets in school. All protected by the same humble black powder. A family passes you, a mother, father, and 2 kids. One of the children, barely more than a toddler, toddles along with bold, slightly wobbly eyeliner around both eyes. You chuckle. Somebody started young. The father catches your eye. "Better than sunburn," he says simply. You nod. It's always better than sunburn. You reach your doorway just as the first stars appear. Inside, your cousin, the same one who makes cosmetics, has lit a lamp. You sit together on the floor and share a bowl of lentils. She eyes your smudged face. "Hard day." You grin. "You should see the other guy." She laughs, then tosses you a cloth. "Clean up. I made a new batch. Smoother texture." You wipe away the old kohl, the day's dust and sweat with it, and then lean forward to let her reapply the new formula. Her fingers are warm and sure. The powder smells faintly of cinnamon and something metallic. You close your eyes and let the line form again, slow and soft. With each pass of the stylus, the weariness of the day melts. You're back to being someone whole, someone steady. You open your eyes and blink once. The room glows softly, and you, lined, grounded, quiet, are ready for whatever tomorrow burns your way. The night is quiet, and the wind shifts through the papyrus stalks like a whispered secret. You're sitting at the edge of the Nile, legs dangling over the bank, staring at your reflection in the water. Your eyeliner from earlier has mostly faded, smudged from heat, time, maybe even a few tears you're not admitting to. But you can still see the faint lines, dark and ghostly around your eyes. And you remember the stories. They begin when you're young, before you even know what eyeliner is. Sitting at your grandmother's knee, hearing her hushed voice under the hiss of oil lamps, she would tap her temple and whisper, "Always line your eyes, child. The gods are watching." You used to laugh at that, but now, years later, you don't laugh so easily. Because you've learned, eyeliner isn't just decoration. It's protection, warding, the boundary between you and the invisible. Tonight, you remember one story in particular. It's your grandmother's favorite, the tale of Horus and his eye. You close your eyes and let it unfold. Horus, the falcon-headed god, is locked in bitter combat with Set, the chaos bringer, for control of Egypt. They battle not once, but many times, with gods and mortals alike watching from the shadows of reeds and thrones. And during one of these battles, Set strikes a devastating blow. He tears out Horus's eye. You wince, feeling it almost physically, not because of gore, but because of meaning. In Egypt, the eye isn't just for sight. It's the seat of power, the gateway of protection. To lose it is to be shattered. But Horus doesn't stay broken. With the help of the god Thoth, the master of wisdom and healing, the eye is restored. Not just repaired, mind you, but reforged into something greater. The Udjet eye, also known as the Eye of Horus. Complete, divine, watchful. This symbol becomes one of the most powerful in all of Egypt. People etch it into tombs, carve it into amulets, paint it onto ships, even scribble it onto receipts. The eye sees always. It guards against illness, envy, chaos. And it inspires the way people line their own eyes. That's what your grandmother said. When you draw the line, you draw the eye. The long swoop from the corner of your eyelid, the bold wing trailing out like a hawk's tail. It mimics the shape of the Eye of Horus. Not just fashion, faith. Some historians today see this as poetic interpretation, maybe even a little wishful. Did Egyptians really think they were copying divine geometry when they shaped their eyeliner? Or did the aesthetic come first, and the mythology get draped over it later? Historians still argue whether the iconic winged style developed from ritual devotion or from purely functional designs that just happened to resemble the gods. You shrug. Maybe it's both. Maybe copying the divine isn't imitation. It's invitation. Your own eyeliner tonight is faint, but the memory of the Eye of Horus pulses in your mind. You draw your finger along your temple, tracing the line where Cole once sat. The night seems calmer now. Behind you, someone approaches, a young priest from the local temple. You know him. He's friendly, slightly awkward, and always smells faintly of incense. He sits beside you with a quiet, "Evening." You nod. "Need a break from chanting?" He chuckles. "Always." You sit in companionable silence for a while, watching the moon's reflection ripple on the water. Then he speaks again. "Do you know why they buried people with the eye?" You nod slowly. "So they'd see on the journey to the afterlife." "Exactly, but it's more than that." He leans forward, animated now. "They believed the eye could guard the soul, not just see. It fought off evil, disease, demons, decay." You think about your cousin's careful ritual each morning. The murmured spell as she dips the stylus in powder. The way she touches her own face like she's drawing a barrier. Like a shield. You murmur. "Yes," the priest says. "A painted shield." He pulls something from the fold of his robe. A tiny amulet shaped like the eye. Polished, heavy. The lines are bold, unmistakable. He places it in your palm. "Made this from leftover temple bronze. he says. Not for worship, just to remember. You grip it tightly, feeling the cool metal ground you. The eye of Horus stares upward, unblinking. You pocket the amulet and rise, brushing dust from your tunic. The priest remains seated, looking up at the stars. Don't forget to reapply before dawn, he calls softly. You smile. Wouldn't dare. Back home, you sit by the flickering lamplight and reach for your small box of cosmetics. The mirror is dim, warped by time, but your hands know the motions by heart. Dip, swirl, press, draw. The line forms again. Steady, sacred, strong. This time you make the wing longer, sharper, alone. When you finally lie down to sleep, your eyes still ringed in fresh coal, you think about Horus. His rage, his pain, his healing. You think about the symbols we carry, where paint onto ourselves not just to look better, but to be better. And you know that when morning comes, when the sun slices across the land and the dust swirls up in angry gusts, you'll face it with lined eyes and a quiet prayer. Let the gods see me. Let them know I see them back. The morning is unusually still. Even the birds seem hesitant, as if the entire land is holding its breath. You sit up slowly, sheets sticking to your skin from the night's humidity. Your eyes feel heavy but protected, the faint smudges of yesterday's coal still clinging to your lids like loyal guards who refused to abandon post. Before anything else, you light the incense. It's ritual now, cedar and frankincense curling through the room like invisible silk. You don't speak, but your hands move with quiet precision. The mirror comes out, the cosmetic box opens with a click, and your fingers already know what to do. The coal feels cool on your skin, silky as it glides across yesterday's outline. You stretch the line further today, a little more boldness, a touch more confidence. You're not meeting a lover or preparing for a festival. You're going to a funeral. It's your friend's mother, an older woman who once scolded you for tracking mud into her house and later stuffed your hands with dates in apology. She wore eyeliner until the day she died. Bold, heavy lines, practical, spiritual, and, if you're being honest, dramatic as hell. You remember something she once told you. I'll meet Osiris with my eyes wide open. That stuck with you. Now, walking toward the necropolis, you pass others headed in the same direction. Every face is marked. Not just grief, but eyeliner. Thick black bands stretching across tear-wet faces. Even in mourning, the Egyptians line their eyes. Especially in mourning. One woman sobs openly into her scarf, but her makeup doesn't run. It's too well made. You wonder, briefly, if anyone will compliment her technique. You would. The desert stretches around the burial site, hot and silent. Sand gets into everything, your sandals, your thoughts, your soul. You find a spot near the back of the crowd, under a shade cloth, watching as the priest begins his chants. The body, wrapped and prepared, rests inside the funerary chapel. The face is covered, but you know the coal was applied before the wrapping, eyes traced with black for the journey ahead. It's a detail often skipped over in modern movies about Egypt, but not in real life. Death didn't mean a break in cosmetic routine, it meant doubling down. Protection in the afterlife mattered even more than on Earth. The Eye of Horus symbol is engraved into amulets slipped into the linen wraps, painted onto sarcophagi, inked into scrolls that rest beside the dead. Historians still argue whether these eye markings served more for religious rites or practical embalming rituals. But for the families left behind, the intent was clear. Line the eyes, seal the vision, guide the soul. A breeze stirs, and for a moment, you feel her, your friend's mother, watching from somewhere, judging your posture, smiling at your eyeliner. You smile too. After the ceremony, there's food and drink. People gather under tents, talking quietly, some laughing because grief and joy are often drunk from the same cup. You sip wine, feel it coat your tongue with tartness, and listen as someone retells an old myth. It's about Ra, the sun god, and his daughter Sekhmet, the lioness warrior. When Ra's enemies rose against him, he sent Sekhmet to destroy them. She did with such terrifying power that the land bled. To calm her, Ra tricked her into drinking red-dyed beer until she passed out. And how was she recognized when she awoke? Still half feral and glowing with rage. By the eyeliner. Some say Sekhmet always wore kohl to show her divine status. Others say it was painted on by Ra's followers to remind her of her purpose. Not just destruction, but protection. You bite into a fig and chew slowly. These gods, they're dramatic, complex, suspiciously like humans. Maybe that's the point. Someone passes around a tray of sweet cakes shaped like eyes. You blink, startled. For remembrance, they say. Even the pastries wear eyeliner. Later, your friend pulls you aside. Her eyes are rimmed in heavy green today, a rare pigment, probably malachite. She looks tired but composed. Thanks for coming. You nod. She was fierce. She would have liked your lines, she says. Very sharp. You smirk. I did them extra mean today. There's a pause. Then she digs into her satchel and pulls out a small pot. It's old, carved from alabaster, lid worn smooth. She wanted you to have this, she murmurs. Said you'd know what to do with it. You open it gently. Inside is the finest black coal you've ever seen. Ground so smooth it feels like smoke under your fingertip. Your throat tightens. You close the pot and clutch it to your chest. On the walk home, the world feels quieter. The heat, the sand, even the birds, they all move with a kind of reverence. You pass workers, children, scribes. Most of them wear eyeliner. Some dramatic, others barely there. All of them carry something ancient in the lines. When you reach your door, you don't go inside immediately. You sit down on the step, pull out the alabaster pot, and reopen it. You run your finger across the powder, then draw a slow, precise line beneath each eye. It's darker than your usual, a little more intense, but fitting, because today you don't just wear it to block the sun or honor a god. You wear it for her. Eyes open, lines drawn, guarded, remembered. Dawn sneaks through your window slats, painting soft stripes across your face. You stretch, blinking against the early light, still feeling the weight of yesterday's grief and the strength of the coal lining your eyes. It's strange how something so simple, a line of black powder, can hold so many stories, so much power. You roll out of bed and pad to the courtyard, where the air smells like freshly baked bread and the faint smoke of last night's embers. Your cousin is already up, grinding pigments with a mortar and pestle, humming a tune you half recognize from temple chants. She looks up and grins. Morning, sleepyhead. Ready for today's lesson? You nod, curious. She pulls out a small wooden box filled with various pigments. Black, green, red, and a rare, shimmering blue. Today, you learn how to make coal from scratch. You raise an eyebrow. From scratch? I thought you had enough pots to last a lifetime. She laughs. This isn't just about having makeup. It's about understanding the magic behind it. Knowing what goes into those lines that guard your eyes. You settle onto the cool stone floor as she starts explaining. Coal's main ingredient is galena, a lead sulfide mineral. She shows you tiny, sparkling crystals, explaining how they grind it into powder, then mix it with soot, oils, and sometimes even animal fats to create a smooth paste. You try to imagine how this simple mineral, when transformed, becomes something that not only protects but tells stories. She mentions that ancient Egyptians didn't just use black coal. Green came from malachite, symbolizing fertility and rebirth. Red ochre was rarer, often worn by royalty or priests. Blue, a pigment so precious it was sometimes mixed with gold dust for special ceremonies. Historians still argue whether all these colors had strictly symbolic meanings, or if some were just a matter of availability and fashion trends. You think maybe it was a bit of both. After all, even gods have favorites. As your cousin grinds the pigments, she shares quirky tales of how some pharaohs had their coal mixed with crushed crocodile dung. You nearly choke on a laugh, but she insists it helped keep insects away and healed eye infections. You wrinkle your nose but admit, it does sound like a surprisingly effective remedy. You practice grinding the minerals into powder, feeling the grains slip between your fingers, rough yet delicate. Then comes the mixing, where oils and fat turn the dust into something silky and spreadable. Finally, your cousin hands you a reed brush, worn smooth from use. Ready. You nod, though your hands tremble slightly. You draw the first line under your eye, slow and careful. The powder clings, cool and smooth. It's different from the usual pot, fresher, almost alive. Your reflection in the copper shard looks more intense, more grounded. This isn't just makeup. It's a connection. Your cousin watches you, a small smile playing at her lips. When you make your own kohl, you carry a part of the earth and the past with you. You think about that, about the hands that mined the galena, mixed the oils, lined the eyes of kings and farmers alike, about the rituals and beliefs wrapped up in every swipe. And you realize why you've never really cared about just wearing kohl. It's the story beneath, the ancient alchemy of protection, identity, and even rebellion that matters. You look at your eyes again. The lines are imperfect, but honest. They say the gods watch closely. Tonight, you feel like you might just be watching back. The day unfolds lazily under a relentless sun, the kind that turns sweat into a slow, steady stream down your back. You find yourself wandering through the bustling market, surrounded by a riot of colors, sounds, and smells. Pomegranates, fresh bread, spices ground to fine powders, and artisans shaping delicate jewelry. Everywhere, faces framed by bold lines of kohl, green malachite, and even some daring blues. You stop in front of a vendor selling exotic pigments. His cart is a treasure trove. Jars of crushed minerals, bottles of scented oils, and small boxes carved from ivory. He recognizes you from previous visits, nodding with a sly grin. "Looking for something special?" he asks, lifting a jar filled with deep black powder. You consider, "The best kohl you have." He leans closer, voice dropping, "For the eyes that see beyond." You laugh softly, but there's a curious edge to his words. You wonder if he means the kind of seeing that's more than just sight, the kind that senses spirits, reads intentions, or glimpses the future. You remember the stories of the seer's eyes, priests and priestesses whose kohl-lined gaze was said to pierce the veil between worlds. Their eyes weren't just protected, they were weapons and tools of insight. Later, you find a quiet corner and pull out your alabaster pot. You draw the familiar line beneath your eyes, but today you add a small dot at the inner corner. It's a subtle mark, but it feels significant. Your friend once told you it was a watcher's mark, a secret symbol passed among those who believed they could read the hidden currents of fate. Historians still argue whether such symbols were widespread or isolated to fringe religious sects, but you prefer to believe in the mystery. After all, not everything sacred needs proof. You pass a group of children playing nearby. One of them wears a wildly exaggerated kohl design, thick, heavy lines that look more like a mask than makeup. You smile. Maybe she's practicing for a festival or just having fun. Either way, it reminds you how eyeliner isn't just for protection or ceremony. It's also for play. You think about the many layers of meaning in the eyeliner. Fashion, faith, function, fun. Sometimes all at once. As the sun dips lower, shadows stretch long and cool. You return home, feeling the day's stories settling inside you like sediment. Before you close your eyes for the night, you trace the line one more time. It's not just makeup. It's a story, a shield, a secret. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow you'll draw it again. The scent of lotus flowers drifts through the morning air, delicate and sweet, as you make your way toward the temple district. The stone walls are worn smooth by centuries of hands and prayers, but the colors of the painted reliefs still burst with life under the golden sun. You find yourself drawn to the shrine of Hathor, goddess of beauty, love, and music. Her image is everywhere. Cow horns framing a solar disk, her face serene, eyes lined thickly with kohl that seems to glow with an otherworldly light. You remember the story a temple singer once told you. Hathor's kohl wasn't just for show. It was a sacred tool to charm the gods and protect herself from the evil eye, an unseen curse that could cause misfortune or illness. To line her eyes was to blind the curse, to shield her soul. You touch your own eyelids lightly, feeling the familiar smudge of black powder. You wonder if the eyeliner you wear carries even a fraction of that magic. Inside the temple, the air hums with chants, the rhythmic beating of drums, and the scent of incense thick enough to taste. Priests move gracefully, their faces solemn, eyes marked with kohl in complex patterns. Some thin and elegant, others bold and dramatic. One young priestess catches your eye and nods in greeting. You notice the intricate designs on her eyelids, a delicate web of lines that seems to shift and shimmer as she moves. You ask her about it during a quiet moment. "It's a prayer," she says softly. Each line calls to a different goddess or spirit, its protection and devotion woven into the skin. Historians still debate whether such patterns were common or reserved for specific rituals, but you're captivated by the idea of makeup as a sacred language. As you leave the temple, you spot a street artist painting portraits with charcoal. He sketches a woman's face, focusing on the eyes, the kohl lines extending out like wings. He says it's a tribute to the divine feminine, the eternal watcher who guards the balance between worlds. You pause, realizing eyeliner isn't just about keeping the sun out or looking fierce. It's a symbol layered with centuries of belief, artistry, and connection. That night, as you prepare for sleep, you take a moment to draw your own lines carefully. Not just for fashion or protection, but as a small prayer to Hathor, to the ancient hands that first crushed the minerals, and to the watchers who came before you. You close your eyes and let the quiet settle, knowing the stories, and the eyeliner will see you safely through the night. The marketplace buzzes softly as you wander through stalls laden with spices, woven fabrics, and trinkets glinting in the afternoon sun. Among the clamor, a storyteller's voice rises, a rhythmic chant weaving tales of gods and mortals, curses and blessings. You pause, drawn to the narrative as much as the crowd. His tale centers on Cleopatra, not the glamorous queen of popular legend, but the woman who wielded eyeliner like a weapon in political intrigue and survival. He describes how Cleopatra's signature dramatic kohl was more than a fashion statement. It was a calculated tool of power and persuasion. You picture her, eyes lined thick and dark, commanding rooms with just a glance, her gaze cutting through the tension like a blade. The story suggests her eyeliner was rumored to contain secret herbs that boosted confidence or even masked poisons. Historians still debate whether Cleopatra's cosmetics had medicinal properties, or if that's just glamorous myth-making, but the idea fascinates you. Eyeliner as armor, as a cloak, as a form of silent communication in a world where words could be deadly. Nearby, a group of children play, smearing kohl on their faces in wild, playful patterns. Some imitating warriors, others mimicking animals, and a few just experimenting with their own creativity. You laugh quietly to yourself, remembering your own childhood experiments with eyeliner that never quite turned out as planned. The storyteller's voice softens as he recounts a curious anecdote. Egyptian soldiers sometimes wore kohl to intimidate enemies in battle. The dark lines made their eyes look larger, fiercer, more frightening. A psychological trick to unnerve opponents before swords even crossed. You think about that eyeliner as camouflage, as weaponized beauty, as part of the theater of war. It's a far cry from your usual use, but somehow it feels connected. Later, you find yourself tracing the line beneath your eye with a bit more intention. This isn't just about shielding your gaze or honoring the gods. It's about stepping into a role wearing history like armor. The sun dips below the horizon, and the shadows lengthen. You wonder what Cleopatra's gaze would be like tonight, watching the stars, calculating her next move. You smile softly, knowing you won't survive this day without your eyeliner. The day drapes over you like a warm blanket, the Nile's gentle murmur a constant background lullaby. You find yourself wandering along the riverbank, watching fishermen haul in their nets, the water glittering with afternoon light. The air smells of mud, fish, and something faintly sweet, maybe blooming papyrus. Your thoughts drift back to the use of eyeliner in the most practical, unexpected ways. Sure, the gods and kings had their rituals, but the farmers and fishermen, they had their reasons too. Kohl wasn't just about looking good or scaring off evil spirits. It was a shield against the relentless glare of the sun and the stinging dust carried by desert winds. The black lines across the eyes absorbed light, reducing glare just like modern athletes eye black. You watch a young fisherman squinting against the sun, his eyes rimmed thickly with kohl. You wonder if he knows he's carrying on a tradition older than the river itself. But here's the quirky part. Some ancient recipes for kohl included ground-up crocodile dung. You blink at this, recalling how it supposedly helped keep infections at bay. Not the most glamorous ingredient, but effective in its way. You wonder if the fisherman's kohl contains a hint of that now, or if modern makers have swapped it for something less, well, pungent. Historians still argue whether crocodile dung was a deliberate antiseptic ingredient or a contamination from preparation methods. But either way, it paints a vivid picture of ancient life's rough edges beneath the glamour. The sun climbs higher and you decide to test the theory. You pull a leaf from a nearby papyrus reed and shade your eyes, feeling the difference immediately. You glance at your reflection in the water. Kohl-lined eyes staring back, sharp and shadowed. You smile. The ancient Egyptians knew their stuff. Protective eyeliner wasn't just sacred. It was smart. As you walk back toward the village, you spot a group of children chasing a small hoop. Their faces are streaked with playful kohl marks. War paint, perhaps, or just messy curiosity. One little girl notices you watching and waves, her eyes bright and mischievous beneath her smudged lines. You wave back and think about how eyeliner is woven into every layer of life, from the grandest rituals to the simplest moments of childhood. Tonight, when you draw your lines, you'll remember this. Protection comes in many forms. Some sacred, some practical, all deeply human. The evening air cools, scented faintly with burning cedar and sweet myrrh. As you settle onto a woven mat beneath a canopy of stars. The village has quieted down, but your mind is alive with the day's discoveries, swirling like the desert winds outside. You reach for your small mirror, a polished piece of obsidian, and examine your eyes. The kohl lines you drew this morning have softened, smudged slightly, but still hold that familiar weight of tradition and protection. You think about the stories of how eyeliner served as a social signal, a subtle language between Egyptians. It told others who you were, your status, your profession, even your mood. Priests and priestesses favored certain patterns. Royalty had their distinctive styles, and ordinary folk often used simpler lines. Sometimes the thickness or curve of the line could mean you were married or a warrior or devoted to a particular deity. You wonder if people today have lost that secret language, or if it's just changed into something new, like how a glance or a smile can say more than words. One quirky tale from a traveling merchant you met earlier in the day comes to mind. Some ancient Egyptians believed the kohl could attract specific spirits or even influence dreams. Applying it before bed wasn't just about protection during the day, but also about guiding your journey through the night. Historians still argue whether such beliefs were widespread or confined to niche cults, but it adds a mystical shimmer to the practice, doesn't it? You touch your eyelids lightly, feeling the cool residue, and think about how such a simple ritual connects the mundane with the magical. Your thoughts wander to the artisans who crafted the delicate containers and brushes, pouring skill and reverence into each tool. You smile softly, imagining how each stroke of kohl was a brushstroke on the canvas of identity. A personal symbol painted with intention, tradition, and a touch of magic. Tonight, as you close your eyes, you carry those lines with you, not just as makeup, but as a map of stories, a shield against shadows, and a whisper from the past. The temple bells toll softly in the distance as twilight drapes the city in a violet haze. You wander through narrow alleys where the walls are covered with faded hieroglyphs, stories etched in stone that have survived millennia. Each symbol seems to pulse with secrets, whispering about gods, kings, and the everyday people who once walked these streets with kohl-lined eyes just like yours. You stop before a weathered mural depicting a goddess with eyes rimmed in thick black lines, her gaze both fierce and tender. Someone told you that the eyeliner wasn't just cosmetic. It was believed to channel the goddess's power, to awaken divine protection in the wearer's eyes. You press your fingers to your own eyelids, imagining a spark of that power flickering within. But not everyone agreed on how to apply this sacred makeup. Some ancient texts describe meticulous rituals, chanting prayers, mixing pigments with special oils, even applying eyeliner only on certain days to align with the stars. Historians still debate whether these rituals were uniform across Egypt or varied wildly between regions and classes. You like to think there was no single rulebook, just a living tradition, shaped by each wearer's needs and beliefs. You recall a charming story from an old herbalist you once met, who claimed that some women mixed ground beetles with their kohl to achieve a deeper, almost iridescent black. She swore it gave the eyes a shimmering glow that could entrance anyone daring enough to look. You laugh softly, picturing the startled faces of suitors caught under such a spell. Imagine eyeliner doubling as a flirtation tool, beauty and mischief all in one. Later, as night settles in, you trace your own eyeliner line with deliberate care, feeling the brush glide smoothly along your skin. You think about the countless hands that have done the same, from queens in palaces to farmers by the Nile. This simple ritual, you realize, is a bridge across time. A whisper that says, "You are seen, you are protected, you are powerful." And as your eyes close, the shadows fade away, leaving only that glowing line of ancient magic to light your dreams. A gentle breeze rustles the palm fronds overhead as you walk along the dusty path leading to the potter's workshop. The air is thick with the smell of wet clay and wood smoke, comforting in its earthiness. You watch the potter's hands, skilled and steady, shaping vessels that will hold water, oils, or pigments, perhaps even the very kohl that will later grace someone's eyelids. You realize how central these artisans were to the eyeliner story. It wasn't just about the makeup. It was about the containers, the applicators, and the raw materials that had to be sourced, processed, and perfected. The potter's apprentice shows you a small alabaster jar, its surface smooth and cool. "These hold the precious powders," he says, "kept safe from the desert's dust and moisture." You think about how every piece, from the jar to the brush, carried meaning. The vessels themselves were sometimes inscribed with protective spells, meant to guard not just the wearer but the very essence of the makeup. Historians still debate how widespread such inscribed containers were, whether reserved for royalty or more common among the wealthy, but the craftsmanship speaks volumes. You learn that kohl wasn't just made from one mineral but a blend, galena for the black, malachite for green, and sometimes even a hint of chrysocolla for blue hues. One quirky fact that sticks with you is the use of powdered stibnite, which could sometimes be toxic in large doses. You chuckle softly, imagining an accidental overdose from too much eyeliner. Ancient beauty gone wrong. As the potter spins the wheel, you reflect on how much patience and skill went into every aspect of this ritual, from mining the minerals to grinding them fine enough to glide smoothly across skin. You think about how eyeliner was a collaboration between nature, craft, and culture, a dance of elements that created something both practical and profoundly beautiful. And as twilight deepens, you feel a quiet gratitude for these unseen artisans, whose work still whispers through your fingertips. Night settles softly, the stars shimmering faintly like scattered jewels across a velvet sky. You find yourself drawn to a quiet corner of the village, where an elderly woman sits weaving reeds into baskets. Her hands are steady, lined with years of stories, and her eyes, ringed with kohl, hold a calm wisdom. You sit beside her, curious about her relationship with the ancient art of eyeliner. She smiles, and without much prompting, begins to speak about the symbolic power of the lines that frame her eyes. "In my youth," she says, "kohl was more than protection or beauty. It was a reminder of who I was, my place in the world. Every morning, as I traced the lines, I thought of my ancestors, their strength flowing through me." She explains that eyeliner could also be a mark of mourning or joy. Darker, heavier lines might be worn during times of grief, while lighter, more decorative designs celebrated festivals or new beginnings. You listen, fascinated by how this small ritual could carry such emotional weight. Historians still argue whether eyeliner was widely used as a symbol of personal expression or mainly as a communal or religious marker, but you can see how it might have been both. She leans closer and reveals a quirky tradition. Some women would share a bit of their own kohl powder with friends or family during special ceremonies. A tangible connection, like passing along a piece of one's spirit. You smile, imagining this ancient form of friendship bracelet, worn not on the wrist but on the eyes. As the night deepens, you feel the weight of centuries resting lightly on your own eyelids. The line of kohl is no longer just makeup. It's a thread linking generations, emotions, and identities. You close your eyes slowly, carrying the quiet strength of that shared history into your dreams. The first light of dawn filters through the palm trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground as you stroll toward the bustling bazaar. The air is alive with chatter, the clinking of coins, and the rich aroma of spices mingling with fresh bread. Among the many stalls, you find a vendor selling jars of pigment, their contents gleaming like crushed jewels. You kneel to inspect the powders, deep blacks, vibrant greens, and shimmering blues. The vendor, an elderly man with a knowing smile, explains how each pigment carries its own symbolism and practical use. Black coal, he says, protects against the harsh sun and evil spirits. Green malachite connects you to the fertile land and the goddess Hathor, while blue chrysocolla links you to the heavens and divine wisdom. You ponder the spiritual dimension of eyeliner, not just a cosmetic, but a map of belief and identity painted on skin. You recall a peculiar story from a scholar you once read about, who argued that the vivid colors might have served as early mood indicators, a kind of emotional palette. Maybe a blue line meant calm, a green one vitality. Historians still debate whether these color codes existed or are modern interpretations, but the idea adds a playful layer to the tradition. As you listen to the vendor's tales, you notice a small child nearby, clutching a tiny jar of coal, eyes wide with wonder. It's clear that this ritual, ancient and sacred, continues to capture imaginations across generations. You leave the bazaar with a small vial of the darkest coal, feeling its weight like a promise, a link to the past and a shield for the future. That night, as you carefully apply the pigment, you think about how eyeliner transcends time, culture, and language, connecting you to a lineage of dreamers, warriors, and believers. The line beneath your eye isn't just makeup. It's a story told softly in shadow and light. A soft breeze carries the scent of jasmine as you wander through a quiet garden hidden behind high adobe walls. Here, statues of gods and goddesses watch silently, their eyes carved with delicate precision, some outlined in the iconic coal lines you've come to recognize. You pause before a statue of the god Horus, his falcon eyes sharp and commanding. It's said his gaze protects the living from harm, a symbol of royal power and divine watchfulness. You consider how eyeliner, especially the bold lines mimicking Horus's eyes, was more than decoration. It was an invocation of protection, a way to borrow the god's watchful power. You think about the famous Eye of Horus amulet, worn to guard against danger and bring good health. Applying eyeliner, in this sense, was like donning a portable amulet, painted directly onto the skin. Historians still debate how literal this connection was, whether people believed the eyeliner actually transformed their eyes or if it was purely symbolic. But the recurring imagery suggests a deep cultural belief in the power of sight. A quirky tidbit bubbles up. Some texts describe coal powders mixed with ground antimony, which could have slight antimicrobial properties. So alongside the magic, there might have been some ancient science at play. You smile, appreciating the blend of faith and practicality. As the sun dips low, you sketch the lines beneath your own eyes, channeling the spirit of Horus. You feel a subtle shift, a heightened awareness, a sense of being seen and safe. The garden grows quiet, the statues blending with the gathering dusk, and you realize that eyeliner is more than a beauty ritual. It's a symbol of vigilance, connection, and protection, tracing a line from the ancient gods to your own gaze. You close your eyes softly, the darkness a gentle cloak, knowing that Horus's watchful eye lingers just beneath your lids. The desert wind hums low as you climb a ridge overlooking the ancient ruins of a once thriving city. The stones below are scorched gold, crumbled and sunken, but still whisper with echoes of daily life. Vendors calling out, children laughing, the soft shuffle of sandals on dust. As you gaze over the ruins, you begin to picture what life was like here. Not in the palaces, but in the homes of everyday people. The potters, bakers, scribes, and barbers. You imagine a woman, standing before a small copper mirror, dipping a slender reed into her coal jar. Maybe she's heading to the market, or a gathering, or simply wants to feel more herself. Because even then, beauty wasn't just about impressing others. Sometimes it was an act of reclaiming your day, a statement to the world and to yourself. One quirky tale passed down in this region involves a group of traveling performers who wore wildly exaggerated eyeliner, not just to embody gods or spirits, but to catch the light in candlelit temples. The kohl became theatrical lighting, helping every eye expression land, even in the dark. Historians still argue whether this practice was widespread across all Egypt or only tied to particular festivals, but performance makeup as divine homage. That tracks. You sit among the ancient stones and run your fingers through the hot sand. It's gritty and fine, clinging to your skin the same way it must have clung to those before you. You glance at your hands, dusty now, and think of how many hands once shaped the eyeliner jars, the mixing bowls, the applicators made of bone or bronze. You notice a shard of pottery near your foot, half buried. It's plain, but there's a faint groove etched into the side. Maybe decorative, maybe practical. You wonder if it once held someone's sacred pigment, if it ever sat on a windowsill catching the dawn light. Applying kohl wasn't just for temple rituals or royal appearances. It was baked into daily life as routine as bathing or eating. A silent ritual that grounded you. You stand and brush off your clothes, feeling a quiet reverence settle in your chest. There's something deeply human about this continuity. How, even now, across cultures and centuries, we draw close to our eyes what matters most. You walk slowly along the riverbank now, the Nile glittering in the moonlight like melted silver. The water laps gently at the reeds, a calming rhythm that seems to breathe in sync with you. The breeze off the river cools your face, and you close your eyes for a moment, the scent of lotus and silt drifting up. You're not alone. Figures move around you in memory, in imagination. A fisherman cleaning his nets, a mother combing her daughter's hair, and a scribe hunched over a scroll, stopping briefly to adjust the thick kohl around his tired eyes. You realize, even those who worked behind the scenes, away from temples and thrones, embraced the ritual. The scribe's kohl wasn't for vanity. It was to reduce the sun's glare bouncing off the parchment, a built-in sunshade centuries before sunglasses. One of your favorite quirky discoveries was that kohl may have worked similarly to how athletes today apply black marks under their eyes to cut the sun's reflection. Imagine that your eyeliner has more in common with a baseball player than a beauty blogger. Historians still argue whether this light reduction function was intentional or just a side effect, but the result was the same. Clearer sight in a blindingly bright world. You crouch by the edge of the water and glance down at your reflection. The rippling surface distorts your face, elongates your kohl-lined eyes into something otherworldly, something divine. It hits you then. Eyeliner was also a mirror trick, a way to remake yourself, to take your ordinary, work-worn features and shape them into something elevated, something mythic. The woman who baked bread each morning, she could become Hathor with the right tilt of her kohl. The man who stitched sandals, he could channel Horus with a fierce black line. And you could carry all of them with you. A smear of pigment became a kind of identity shift, like putting on armor or wings. You dip your fingers in the Nile and touch the corner of your eye, letting the cool water melt away the day's line. Not in erasure, but in renewal. Tomorrow, the ritual will begin again. The night deepens, stars thick as sugar scattered across the sky, and you find yourself wandering into a quiet chamber. Part temple, part tomb. Its stone walls whispering secrets in every crevice. You trace the carved hieroglyphs with your fingers, pausing at a scene that arrests you. A high priest mid-ritual, his eyes ringed in elaborate black, his hand extended toward a kneeling figure. There's power in the way his gaze commands the moment. You realize now that eyeliner wasn't just protection or beauty, it was performance, authority, ritual control. In religious ceremonies, especially those conducted in the inner sanctums of temples, the eyes had to speak loudly. They had to see and be seen by gods, spirits, and the people. The application of kohl became almost like donning a mask before stepping into the sacred spotlight. One fringe theory you've heard and can't quite dismiss suggests that the most dramatic eyeliner looks weren't always for the living. Some tombs show figures with eye shapes exaggerated beyond natural human anatomy, almost alien in their geometry. Some scholars think it may have symbolized divine vision after death. Historians still argue whether these elongated, stylized eyes were literal representations of makeup or entirely symbolic, perhaps guiding the soul through the underworld's shadowy terrain. You step deeper into the chamber, noticing how the architecture channels sound, how even the smallest footstep echoes as though the walls are listening. It must have been haunting, back then, standing before a deity's statue in full ceremonial dress, eyes painted sharp, voice lifted in chant. And you wonder, did the weight of coal on their eyelids give them courage? Did it remind them they were not merely mortal in that moment? A papyrus fragment from this region once mentioned a priest who refused to lead morning rites until his eyeliner was perfect, because, he claimed, the gods will only look into eyes they recognize. You smile at the vanity, the devotion, the humanity in that. You take a deep breath, feeling the sacred hush seep into your bones. In these shadowed halls, the line around the eye becomes a border between worlds, the seen and unseen, the present and the eternal. As you turn to leave, you run your fingers along your brow, mentally redrawing the shape. Not for glamour, not even for ritual, but because in this moment you understand. The eyes are where the soul declares itself. You step out of the temple into the stillness of the pre-dawn hour, where the sky bruises from deep violet into soft rose. The horizon glows faintly, promising warmth, but for now, it's the cold hour, the in-between, when the world feels paused. You wander into a narrow alley of mud brick homes, quiet and worn. A rooster crows somewhere, but otherwise the silence wraps around you like a shawl. At one doorstep you pause. A girl, maybe 12 or 13, is peering into a cracked piece of polished bronze, applying coal with surprising care. Her strokes are steady, practiced. It strikes you this isn't ceremonial or festive. This is her morning routine. You watch her outline her eyes, adjust a strand of hair, then reach for a bit of palm oil to dab along her cheekbones. She isn't preparing to meet gods or nobles. She's just starting her day. This quiet moment reminds you that for most people in ancient Egypt, eyeliner was simply part of life, like combing your hair or tying your sandals. It wasn't grand or exotic. It was familiar, domestic, comforting. One quirky old poem, now just a fragment, suggests lovers used eyeliner as a kind of secret code. If someone showed up with only one eye lined, it meant they were heartbroken. If both were done dramatically, they were in love or trying to win someone back. Historians still debate whether such gestures had actual cultural meaning or were poetic invention, but it's delicious to imagine a world where your eyeliner sent messages as clearly as a text. You lean against a low wall and think about how many generations have painted their faces in quiet corners just like this, long before YouTube tutorials or department store counters. Their tools were reed brushes and bone spoons. Their palettes were stone slabs rubbed smooth by years of grinding. Their light came from oil lamps and the slow, rising sun. And somehow, despite all the time between then and now, the gesture remains the same. Draw the line. Frame the eye. Face the day. The girl finishes, wipes her fingers on her tunic, and walks away, her gaze already sharp with readiness. You stand and stretch, feeling a quiet kinship in the act. Kohl, in its purest form, wasn't just ritual. It was rhythm, a daily act of centering, a small but potent declaration. I am here. I see. I am seen. The sun climbs higher now, gilding the city in gold, and you make your way toward a small workshop nestled between a weaver's stall and a spice merchant's cart. It smells of clay, oils, and crushed minerals, earthy and alive. Inside, two artisans are already hard at work, their fingers stained with pigment, tools neatly arranged like a surgeon's kit. This is where the magic happened. Not in royal palaces, but in humble studios where jars of coal were mixed, bottled, and sold to everyone from priestesses to bricklayers. You crouch to observe as one artisan grinds galena into fine powder, blending it with animal fat or castor oil until it becomes that smooth, inky black paste you now know so well. They let you dip a carved bone applicator into the mixture. It's cool and slightly sticky, and as you draw it beneath your eye, it clings with satisfying ease. You can feel the intention in every step. This isn't just chemistry, it's alchemy. A mainstream fact you've learned before echoes now. Galena-based coal had the side benefit of warding off certain bacterial infections. Not glamorous, maybe, but incredibly useful in a hot, dusty world. The makeup was literally medicinal. But here's something stranger. In some fringe studies, researchers claim that small amounts of lead in the coal may have stimulated the body's production of nitric oxide, effectively boosting the immune response. The idea that ancient Egyptians unknowingly biohacked their way to better health with eyeliner? That's a flex. Historians still argue whether this lead therapy effect was deliberate wisdom passed down through generations, or just happy accident. Either way, it adds new weight to every pot of coal. You help stir a new batch of pigment, watching it swirl into darkness. Then you ask about color, because while black was the most common, green and even blue had their moments. The artisans nod and bring out small pots of malachite and crushed turquoise. These were rarer, more expensive, and often used for special occasions or status symbols. To wear green coal in certain regions was to announce not just wealth, but connection to the gods of rebirth and vegetation. They even show you a tiny jar believed to have belonged to a temple dancer, its sides worn smooth by years of fingertips. You run your own along its edge and feel an echo of its former owner. In this space, surrounded by mineral dust and morning chatter, you begin to understand that eyeliner in ancient Egypt was as much a product as it was a personal journey. Someone mined the ore, someone ground it, someone bottled it, and finally someone, maybe someone just like you, applied it with care, looked in a mirror, and stepped out into the world feeling just a little more complete. You step back into the sun, your new coal catching the light. A gift from the past, handmade and heavy with history. You walk now through a bustling marketplace, one of those chaotic, glorious collisions of color, sound, and scent. Merchants shout over one another in competing rhythms. Fabrics flutter in the hot wind. Baskets overflow with figs, garlic, and dates. And somewhere nearby, a lyre player plucks a mournful tune over the din. Amid the crowd, a long table catches your eye. It's cluttered with trinkets, combs, amulets, and yes, cosmetic containers. Tiny alabaster jars, carved ivory boxes, and palm-sized palettes made of slate. Some are practical, others purely beautiful. You run your finger along the edge of a palette shaped like a duck with inlaid eyes, and you realize even the tools used for eyeliner were crafted with care, sometimes with more artistry than the makeup itself. The mainstream fact hits you again. Coal pots weren't just containers. They were heirlooms, status symbols, even grave goods. Archaeologists have unearthed thousands of them in tombs, carefully placed near the deceased like tokens for the afterlife. To take your eyeliner with you beyond death? Now that's loyalty. But here's the quirky twist. In one tomb, they found a coal jar shaped like a hedgehog. Not exactly intimidating. Scholars speculate it may have been a gift from a child, or maybe a wink at personality, because even in the afterlife, Egyptians weren't above a bit of humor. Historians still argue whether the more whimsical items found in burials had symbolic significance, or were just treasured possessions tucked in by grieving hands. Either way, the presence of eyeliner containers in so many graves suggests a deep emotional tie to this daily ritual. You continue strolling through the market, catching snatches of conversation in the warm air. One older woman explains how her coal box came from her grandmother, who received it as a wedding gift. Another man barters for a finely carved reed applicator, examining its tip like a jeweler inspecting a gem. It becomes clear to you, these weren't just beauty supplies. They were love letters, status badges, spiritual anchors. Passed down, given away, buried beside you. The act of preparing your eyeliner wasn't just cosmetic. It was connective. A tether between family, between generations, between this life and the next. As you leave the marketplace, the noise fades behind you like a distant song. In your pouch, you now carry a little jar of your own, maybe not ancient, but still meaningful. Because the moment you chose it, it became part of your story too. And in the end, that's what all this eyeliner business has really been about. Not just how it looked, but how it felt, what it said. You pause beneath a sycamore, the tree's wide branches giving shade as you glance into a polished brass mirror one last time. Your eyes meet your own, framed, alive, timeless. You step out from the shade of the sycamore and find yourself following a winding path toward a hillside necropolis. The desert crunches underfoot, The sun bleaches the horizon into a blazing blur, and ahead, rows of tombs carved into stone. Silent, still, watching. Here lie the artisans of Deir el-Medina, the village of those who built and painted the tombs of kings. Not nobles themselves, but creators of eternity. Their homes were modest, but their work was magnificent. And though they lived with dust in their lungs and deadlines on their backs, they also lived with style, including the unmistakable streak of kohl beneath the eye. You duck into one of the small tombs, the cool air wrapping around you like silk. Murals still cling to the walls, scenes of daily life rendered with aching care. Banquets, games, fishing trips, and in nearly every one, eyes framed in that bold, unbroken black. The mainstream fact settles like a hush. Kohl wasn't reserved for the elite. Even the tomb workers, the middle class of ancient Egypt, wore it. In fact, Deir el-Medina has yielded some of the best preserved kohl pots ever discovered, tucked into niches alongside tools, letters, and love charms. But here's the kicker. One house in the village had a secret stash, a hidden compartment under the floorboards filled with eyeliner jars, some intact, some half-used. A private collection, a forgotten shop, or maybe just someone's personal archive of beauty. Historians still argue whether these hidden caches were acts of thrift, vanity, or spiritual preparation. Perhaps all three. You sit for a moment on a low stone bench and imagine one of these painters after a long day's work. Back aching, fingers stained with ochre, but still taking a moment to sit by lamplight and trace a careful line around each eye. Not for an audience, not for ritual, just to feel like himself. You've heard that some of the workmen even painted eyeliner on the statues they carved, even when it wasn't part of the formal canon. Just a flick of black, maybe as a joke, or maybe because they couldn't help but finish the face. Couldn't stand to see an eye unguarded. You walk slowly through the village ruins, passing low walls, potsherds, and time-smoothed staircases. Every step echoes with memory. These were people who lived between two extremes, divine and mundane, sacred and sweaty. And eyeliner, strangely enough, was one of the few things that bridged both. Because whether you were sculpting a god, laying bricks, or grinding pigment in the shade, the line around your eye said something. I am present. I am prepared. You reach the edge of the site where the desert resumes its rule. The tombs shrink behind you, but their stories cling. And in the quiet of the golden afternoon, it occurs to you, every jar of kohl was a message left behind. Not just in pigment, but in persistence. And you're still reading them. The light is softer now, slanting long and honey gold across the desert. You follow a narrow path out of the necropolis, the heat beginning to retreat like a tired lion, and your footsteps lead you toward the river again. The Nile, the eternal ribbon of life. Its surface glimmers like a god's eye, half-lidded and knowing. You find a reed boat moored loosely against the bank, and you step in without a word. The current is gentle, and the silence of the water lulls you as you drift. Papyrus brushes your fingers as you pass. The day is winding down, and with it, so is your journey. You lean back and think of what it would have meant to apply kohl before a trip like this, back in the old days. To line your eyes before stepping onto the water was more than vanity. It was a kind of armor against sun, spirit, and fate. The mainstream fact returns with a hum. Sailors and fishermen in ancient Egypt wore eyeliner too. Not for beauty, for protection. Against glare, against the eye diseases common to river folk. Entire crews of sun-darkened men with perfectly rimmed eyes. It wasn't a fashion statement. It was survival. But then, there's a whisper of something stranger. Some fringe researchers believe eyeliner was also used by spies or messengers. Painted thick to change appearance, to deceive, to signal allegiances or hide intentions. It's not widely accepted, but you have to admit, it's hard not to believe that eyes framed in sharp black could hide a dozen secrets. Historians still argue whether these more tactical uses of kohl were mythologized after the fact or genuinely part of covert practices. You chuckle softly. Imagine an ancient James Bond with smudged eyeliner and a scroll full of royal secrets tucked in his belt. You trail your hand in the water, watching the ripples pull outward. On the opposite bank, A small boy crouches beside his mother, both of them laughing as she gently paints his eyes. Maybe it's for the festival. Maybe it's for everyday protection. But even now, thousands of years later, the tradition lives on. You pass under the arch of a leaning acacia and imagine all the eyes that have gazed across this same river, framed in black, squinting toward the future or the gods or just the other side. In that moment you realize, eyeliner in ancient Egypt wasn't just a tool or a trend. It was a thread, worn by queens and farmers, priests and pickpockets, painters and warriors. Each line drawn meant something different, but they all meant something. You drift past a shrine half swallowed by vines, its stones whispering fragments of prayer, and you feel the weight of the day settle in your chest. You close your eyes, the coal still clinging to your lashes, and breathe deeply. Out here, in the soft hush of the river's cradle, your painted lids aren't about protection or magic anymore. They're about memory, and you carry every gaze you've met today inside them. The boat slows as the river narrows, and you step out onto the silted shore, greeted by a low breeze that tastes of reeds and distant fires. The sky is blushing now, soft rose and orange bleeding into each other like pigment on a damp scroll. You walk toward a torchlit temple rising from the dust, its entrance flanked by towering pylons and watchful gods carved in stone. Inside, the air shifts, cooler, thicker, echoing. Every footstep is muffled by the weight of incense, and the sandstone walls are bathed in flickering amber. You're no longer a passerby. You're in the presence of something ancient, something sacred. Priests in long linen robes move like shadows, their eyes rimmed in the same deep black that has followed you all day. But here, it's not cosmetic, it's ceremonial. Part of the uniform of divine intermediaries, an emblem of clarity, of purity. A mainstream truth stands solid as a pillar. Temple rituals required strict preparation. Clean bodies, shaved heads, and yes, lined eyes. Coal purified, kept out evil. It signaled readiness to serve the gods. In the temples, makeup was less about appearance and more about alignment, with order, with tradition, with cosmic balance. But then one priest passes you, and tucked in the fold of his sash is something unexpected. A personal coal applicator, not the temple-issued kind. His ivory is cracked, worn down by years of use. You glimpse a name scratched faintly into the handle. Ownership, identity. A quirkier detail emerges from that. Some priests reportedly had their own signature styles of eyelining. Just subtle variations in shape or length, enough that you might recognize them even from a distance. Was it pride, rebellion, or just preference? Historians still argue whether these personal flares were permitted or quietly tolerated. After all, uniformity was a cornerstone of temple life. But humans will be humans, and even in devotion, the need to be seen doesn't entirely vanish. You watch a priest prepare a statue for its daily awakening. He anoints its eyes with oil, then applies a ring of coal around them. It's not real flesh, but still, the act is the same. Even the gods, it seems, are not complete until their eyes are outlined. A hush falls over the chamber. Candles gutter. Somewhere deeper inside the sanctuary, a chorus begins to chant. You don't understand the words, but you don't need to. You feel them in your bones. The coal on your own eyes tingles, as if in response. And now you realize something quiet but profound. All day, you've seen eyeliner as shield, medicine, tradition, vanity. But in this moment, it becomes something else entirely. A ritual, not just for gods, for you too. You step back out of the temple, blinking at the starlight that has replaced the sun. The night air wraps you in a hush. You're no longer in a world of noise and barter and pigments. You're somewhere beyond that now. The lines drawn around your eyes aren't just cosmetic. They're a boundary, a circle, a frame around your soul, and they hold everything you've seen inside. The night deepens, cool and quiet, as you wander away from the temple toward a small village sleeping under a blanket of stars. Lanterns flicker behind wooden shutters, and somewhere a dog barks. More of a sigh than an alarm. You take a slow breath, feeling the dust settle on your skin and the faint, lingering scent of coal from your fingertips. Your mind drifts to the daily lives of ordinary Egyptians, the ones who weren't nobles, priests, or artisans, but farmers, merchants, midwives. Did they wear kohl too? The answer is yes, but not always for the reasons you might expect. A mainstream fact gently nudges you. Kohl was used by children, even infants, to protect their eyes from infection and the harsh desert sun. Mothers carefully lined their babies' eyes with gentle strokes, believing it would ward off evil spirits and illness. A tender, practical love wrapped in black. But there's a quirky tradition tied to this practice. The belief that the evil eye could be warded off by deliberately making the child's eyes different. Hence the exaggerated kohl lines or even dots around their eyes or forehead, sort of like a superhero mask for the little ones. Historians still argue how widespread or effective these protective measures really were. Some say it was mostly superstition. Others point to surprisingly low infection rates in ancient populations as a sign that kohl really did help. You picture a mother kneeling beside a cradle, a tiny hand steady as she carefully paints the protective line, whispering prayers you can't hear. A simple act loaded with hope and fear. As you pass by a well, you see a group of women gathering water and chatting softly. You notice the faint shimmer of kohl on their eyes, mixed with smiles and laughter. For them, eyeliner is a bridge between practical care, cultural identity, and the joy of self-expression. You remember the artists, the priests, the merchants, and now these women and children, all connected by the same stroke of black pigment. It's like a secret handshake across centuries. You pause for a moment and touch your own eyes, feeling a quiet kinship with those countless faces before you. In the dim starlight, eyeliner is more than makeup. It's a language without words, a silent signal passed from hand to hand, heart to heart. You feel ready to close your eyes, but you don't quite want to yet, because there's still one more story to tell. You find yourself drawn toward the edge of the desert, where the sand stretches endlessly beneath a vault of stars that feels almost close enough to touch. The night air is crisp and still, carrying the faint scent of myrrh and crushed herbs. You settle onto a dune's crest, the cool grains shifting beneath you as your eyes trace constellations older than the cities you've visited today. Your thoughts turn to the mystical, the otherworldly. Ancient Egypt was a place where magic and reality blurred, and eyeliner was a key part of that liminal space. It wasn't just protection or style, it was power. The mainstream fact, kohl contained galena, a lead sulfide mineral that, when applied, triggered the body to produce nitric oxide, a compound that boosts the immune system. So, in a way, their magic makeup had a real physical effect. But here's the fascinating bit. Some fringe scholars argue that the application of kohl was part of a larger ritual of self-transformation. They suggest that drawing the dark lines around the eyes was a way to wake the inner self, to heighten senses, and even to commune with gods or spirits. Think of it as ancient biohacking meets spirituality. Historians still debate the extent to which these mystical beliefs influenced everyday cosmetic use. Was kohl truly considered a conduit to the divine, or was that a later romanticization by Egyptologists? The answer remains elusive, as it often is when dealing with ancient minds. You close your eyes, feeling the cool touch of night air against your skin, imagining yourself transformed, not just visually but spiritually. The thick black lines aren't just makeup. They're a mask, a shield, a beacon. You remember the story of the Eye of Horus, the powerful symbol of protection, royal power, and health. Kohl-lined eyes echo that ancient myth, evoking the same sense of guardianship and watchfulness. Every stroke of eyeliner is a nod to that timeless emblem, a gesture of connection to a vast, unseen cosmos. You lift your hand and trace a slow circle around your eye, feeling the weight of history settle softly like a feather. Here, on this dune beneath the endless sky, you realize that eyeliner was more than pigment on skin. It was a bridge between body and spirit, past and present, human and divine. And you're standing on that bridge now. The desert night deepens, stars sparkling like countless eyes watching over you. The vast silence hums with secrets older than words, and as you sit on the soft sand, you feel a gentle tiredness settle into your bones. A kind that invites you to lean back, breathe slowly, and let your mind drift. Throughout your journey, You've traced the story of eyeliner in ancient Egypt, but it's more than just a tale about makeup. It's a story about identity, protection, power, and connection. Every line drawn, every jar carried, every whispered prayer in temple shadows, every child's carefully painted eye has woven a thread through time. You recall the laughter in the marketplace, the hidden coal jars beneath floorboards, the solemn rituals in sandstone temples, and the shimmering river reflecting 1,000 ancient gazes. These moments meld into one, a tapestry of human experience bound by a single black line framing the eyes. Historians still debate many of these meanings, and perhaps they always will. But the enduring presence of eyeliner, from pharaohs to farmers, speaks of something universal. The desire to be seen, to protect what is precious, and to face the world with strength and a touch of grace. You touch your own eyelids gently, imagining the cool smear of ancient coal, the slight sting, the confident boldness it brought. It wasn't just about appearance, it was a language, a shield, a ritual. Now, as the desert night whispers softly around you, it's time to let your eyes close, to rest, to dream, and maybe, just maybe, to carry a little of that ancient magic into your own sleep. So, with the faint echo of those timeless eyes watching, you settle deeper into the sand, breathing slow and steady. Good night. The desert air grows softer now, like a gentle lullaby wrapping around your senses. You feel the warmth of the day ebbing away, replaced by a quiet calm that seeps into every part of you. The story you've traveled is fading gently, its edges softening into the quiet night. Remember, the lines around your eyes are more than just a mark. They are a reminder of resilience, connection, and the beautiful complexity of humanity stretching across millennia. Rest well. The stories will be waiting when you wake. Sleep tight,